Before we begin, stories like this open eyes. If anything in Maya's journey hits you, even a little, drop a comment and tell me what part speaks to you. It helps more people hear stories that often go unheard. She walked into the courtroom quietly, just another black woman people thought they already understood. She wasn't loud, she wasn't angry, she was simply tired of being judged before she ever spoke. But the moment she stepped forward, the judge's smirk said everything. He thought she was beneath him. He thought she was powerless. He thought he already knew her story. But he had no idea who he was dealing with, or what she was about to reveal. What happens when the person they try to belittle is the one holding all the power? Before that courtroom became a battlefield, she lived a life far quieter than anyone imagined. Maya Johnson had built her career on discipline. Long nights studying, early mornings reviewing cases, countless hours learning how justice should work, even when it rarely worked for people who looked like her. She grew up understanding that being a black woman meant carrying twice the weight and receiving half the credit, but she never let that stop her. If anything, it sharpened her. To the world, Maya seemed calm, composed, and almost unshakable. But her strength came from years of handling the kind of silent battles no one else saw, subtle dismissals, whispered doubts, doors that opened for others but stayed shut for her. Still, she climbed higher, step by step, determined to change a system she knew too well. On the morning of the incident, nothing felt unusual. She wasn't wearing a suit. She wasn't carrying a briefcase. She wasn't announcing who she was. She looked like any other everyday citizen walking into a courthouse, holding paperwork and minding her own business. And maybe that's why the judge didn't bother to look twice. Maybe that's why the bailiff barely glanced at her. To them, she fit neatly into a box they had created long before she walked in. But Maya noticed everything, the tone in their voices, the impatience in their eyes, and the way assumptions formed before she ever reached the bench. She had seen it before, many times. What she didn't know was how far they would take it this time, or how her presence in that room was about to flip their entire narrative upside down. Nothing about this day looked different, yet everything was about to change. The moment Maya stepped toward the front of the courtroom, the shift was immediate, subtle, but sharp enough to cut. The judge barely glanced up, offering the kind of dismissive look that carried years of practiced superiority. He tapped his pen, impatient, as if her very presence inconvenienced him. She tried to speak, to clarify why she was there, but he waved his hand quickly, as though brushing off a distraction he didn't have time for. The bailiff moved closer, not with urgency, but with the slow, heavy steps of someone who had already made assumptions. His eyes narrowed, scanning her from head to toe, searching for something that confirmed whatever narrative he had already built. Maya felt the air tighten around her. She had seen this look before, people trying to decide if she belonged, others trying to place her into roles she never chose. She handed over the documents she needed processed, but the judge didn't bother to look at them. Instead, he sighed loudly, exaggerating the gesture for everyone watching. He muttered something under his breath, something about people wasting the court's time, loud enough for her to hear but soft enough to pretend later that it wasn't directed at her. The room felt smaller. Every eye seemed to land on her. The quiet judgment was louder than words. Maya stood still, grounding herself. She reminded herself this wasn't new. She had dealt with worse. Yet today, there was an edge to it, a sharpness that made the back of her neck prickle. The judge leaned forward, his voice carrying a tone of condescending authority as he questioned her presence, her papers, and even her understanding of basic procedures. He spoke slowly and deliberately, the way adults speak to children they believe can't keep up. Each word felt like a test she never signed up for. When she attempted to clarify a minor detail, he cut her off instantly. "Sit down," he ordered, pointing to the back row, as if she were a misbehaving student. The bailiff stepped closer, reinforcing the command. Maya's heart thudded in her chest, not out of fear, but out of frustration. She knew the difference between enforcing order and asserting power. This was the latter. The courtroom murmured, tiny ripples of whispers filling the space. Some people watched with curiosity, others with indifference. No one questioned the judge. No one wondered why he was treating her this way. To them, it was normal. To her, it was familiar, a reminder of how quickly respect could be stripped from a black woman the moment someone assumed she had no authority. Maya sat, gripping her paperwork, feeling the heat rise in her chest. She thought about standing up, telling him who she was, and ending the entire display with a single sentence. But something held her back. Not fear, strategy. Let him show himself. Let the room see it clearly. Let the truth speak louder through his actions than her title ever could. As the judge continued with other cases, Maya watched him, noting every smirk, every impatient shift, and every exaggerated sigh when someone who looked like her stepped forward. It wasn't just her. It was a pattern, one he didn't bother to hide. She felt tension coil tighter within her, each second building toward something inevitable. He thought he was in control. He thought he knew exactly who she was. But Maya knew a truth he hadn't discovered yet. And when it surfaced, this entire room would erupt. Before we continue, if you're still here, stay with the story. The next moment is the turning point, the kind that makes you rethink everything. Watching till the end helps stories like this reach the people who need to hear them. When the judge finally called Maya's case again, the air felt heavier than before. His tone had sharpened, dripping with irritation, as though she had personally disrupted his entire day. He snatched the paperwork from the bailiff, skimmed it for barely 2 seconds, then tossed it aside with a dramatic flick of his wrist. "This is incomplete," he announced loudly, making sure everyone heard. "If you people want help from this court, you need to learn to follow instructions." The room went silent. "You people." The words hit like a slap, public, intentional, and meant to wound. Maya felt every pair of eyes shift toward her again. Some looked uncomfortable, others indifferent, but the judge didn't even notice, or didn't care, what he had just revealed about himself. He leaned forward, ready to lecture her, ready to turn her into an example of the incompetence he believed she represented. Then he did something that turned the moment from humiliation into danger. He threatened to hold her in contempt. For a split second, Maya couldn't breathe. Not out of fear for herself. She understood the law better than anyone in that room, but because she recognized exactly what he was trying to do, trap her. He wanted her to react, to stumble, to break character so he could justify punishing her. It was a tactic as old as the system itself. The bailiff stepped closer again, hand resting near his belt. The judge watched Maya with that same smirk, convinced he had cornered her completely. Convinced she was powerless. Convinced he had the final say. But he didn't know who he was talking to. He didn't know the authority she held. He didn't know the consequences waiting for him just beyond his assumptions. Maya stood slowly, calm and steady, lifting her chin as the room tensed. Because she was done letting him write the narrative. And the truth she was about to reveal would turn his entire courtroom upside down. The moment Maya spoke her truth, the room shifted in a way no one expected. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't mirror the judge's arrogance. She simply stated her full title, calmly, clearly, and with a strength that filled every corner of the courtroom. The words hung in the air like a sudden crack of thunder. Attorney General. The judge's face drained of color. The bailiff froze mid-step. The quiet murmurs in the gallery turned into stunned silence. Every assumption, every insult, and every ounce of disrespect collapsed under the weight of reality. And for the first time that morning, the judge truly looked at her, not as someone beneath him, but as someone who held more power than he had ever imagined. He tried to backtrack. He tried to apologize. He tried to recast his behavior as a misunderstanding. But Maya didn't need his excuses. She had seen enough. She gathered her documents, her dignity, and the remains of a patience she wasn't obligated to give. She walked out of that courtroom not seeking revenge, but clarity. Clarity about how deeply these biases run. Clarity about the work still left to do. Clarity about why her position mattered, because authority means nothing if it can't protect those who don't carry a title beside their name. And that was the part that stayed with her the longest. If this happened to her, a woman with power, education, and status, what happened to those without it? How many voices were dismissed? How many lives were shaped by someone else's assumptions? As she stepped outside, sunlight washed over her, but the weight of the moment didn't fade. It sharpened her purpose. Because this wasn't just one courtroom. It wasn't just one judge. It wasn't just one story. It's a pattern. A warning. A mirror. And the real question is, How many more stories like Maya's must unfold before we finally decide that justice should look the same for everyone? If you want more stories like this, real, raw, and eye-opening, hit subscribe before you scroll. Your support makes sure voices like Maya's are never silenced again.